Hello and welcome back to AfriRise. This is your go-to channel on matters socio-political, historic, and economic all about Africa from all corners of and countries of this continent. And if you're new here, kindly like, subscribe, and turn your notifications bell on for all matters Africa. And today we're going to look at one of the most trendy and the biggest questions in African politics right now, which is the race for the African Union Chairperson seat that is coming up in February of 2025. And on this one, all eyes are on one man, Raila Odinga, a well-known figure in Kenyan politics and perhaps even in African politics, having served as Kenya's prime minister back in 2008 to 2013, and recently having served as AU High Representative for matters infrastructural development between the years 2018 and 2022. And Raila, among the candidates, is the most endorsed candidate with at least 18 countries rallying behind him. But what are the other 36 countries? Remember that Raila needs at least two-thirds of all 54 African countries to win the election. And ideally, that will be 36 countries. But in this case, remember, there are some 6 countries that are not going to vote in February of 2025. These are Gabon, Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, Niger, and Sudan. And however, these countries could have a great influence in the matter of how the regions they come from vote, especially in the Sahel. Remember, the Sahel region is predominantly francophone, and they could influence how these countries vote. Well, let's delve into it and talk about Raila Odinga and ask the real questions. Does Raila Odinga actually stand a chance in this AUC election? And more importantly, is he even the right choice for Africa going forward? Raila, as we all know, is not a stranger in African politics and in the political spotlight of the globe. At the time of the election, Raila will be 80 years old, and he has been in the political stage, especially in Kenya, since 1970s or thereabout. He has been a major political player in Kenya, served as prime minister, and has contested at least 5 presidential elections, losing all of them. Despite all his years in politics, many, including myself, question his effectiveness and his character, real impact in the democratic progress in Africa, especially recently. And to me, and how I see it, Raila represents what I'll call a failed African statesman. His track record really shows a tendency towards alliances that favor neocolonial strategies and interest in the African continent. And again, his style of governance is not exactly Pan-African as he may deem it to be right now, so that he gets the seat. And I have my reasons why I say this. Let's take a closer look. As Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga marked his tenure by a lot of promises, but the follow through has been often lacking.
IDP's compensation questions emerged, with Raila Odinga accusing the Uhuru Kenyatta-led administration of bias and politicking with the compensation for IDPs.
Wengine walipewa 10,000 peke yake, lakini wengine walikuwa napewa 400,000. Tena wanapewa ardhi. Je, hiyo ni ungwana?
Kuanzia Septemba watoto watasoma bure katika shule zote za sekondari.
And remember, he had a good share of the government. And after his term ended as prime minister, Raila has been in back-to-back government since 2013 through backdoor deals rather than the traditional method through the ballot. And after losing 2013 and 2017, Raila found a way in securing a handshake with the then president Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya, which he did more to satisfy his own political ambitions rather than serve the Kenyan people and the broader African agenda that he is now talking about. And the most recent dealings that Raila has done is recently, just in July of 2024, he has shifted now from being the Kenyan leader of opposition to being the current Kenyan president, President Ruto's playboy. And on 8th of November, just recently, I listened to Raila launching his manifesto and make a speech that centers around Pan-African unity, African economic independence, and other great Pan-African ideals. But here is the problem. We normally say that charity begins at home. And the same things that Raila is talking about in his speech are the things that he has really struggled to achieve, even an inch of them, in his own backyard in Kenya. His message sounds powerful at first sight, but as a strong Pan-African leader, he needs to demonstrate the commitment with tangible progress and tangible achievements that he has made. And let's look at it more deeply. And case in point, Raila is the political party leader of the Orange Democratic Movement Party of Kenya, a party that he has led for the past 20 years. And the story of the party tells a very different story. Time and again, Raila has granted direct tickets to his own friends and allies within the party. And this is in its own right bypassing the democratic selection process. This is an undemocratic approach that raises an obvious question. If you cannot model a democratic principled party, then how do we expect you to lead a democratic African Union? Look, but here's another interesting angle to look at it. Raila's candidacy is heavily backed by the Kenyan President William Ruto. And some might wonder, why is Ruto so enthusiastic about Raila's candidate? And to many African leaders, this may look as a strategic move by the Kenyan president to handle domestic political issues that may have arose recently or in the past. And in other words, his candidature may have more to do with the Kenyan political agenda more than African unity. President Ruto has supported Raila's bid, and his enthusiasm must raise eyebrows among African presidents. But again, we know our African presidents. They might see it as a matter of Kenyans and Kenya hoping to solve its domestic political wrangles by placing Raila in an influential position in the African Union. But the truth is, most African leaders are not much concerned about Kenya's internal issues and politics about Kenya. And really, they will not put this at the center of their decision making. In fact, I dare say most of these African leaders of states and presidents really do not care about Africans' future or even the leadership they are putting in charge of it. Most of them want an AUC chair who is going to kind of address their selfish needs and those of maybe their individual countries. But those are a few that think like that. And they will ask this question more often than not, what is in his candidature for me? And looking at what he has done in the past few months, Raila presents himself as a unifier and an advocate for democracy and societal transformation. And most African heads of states would really not care less. And in fact, Raila, in my view, is the exact opposite of a Pan-African leader. His record in Kenya does not exactly indicate or even scream a unifier or democrat in as much as he says he is one. So is this race really close as it seems? Right now, it is often framed as a two-horse race between Raila Odinga of Kenya and Mohamed Yusuf of Djibouti. And Yusuf is considered as a strong contender, same as Raila, and he brings a different perspective to the race in terms of his age and the region and the languages he speaks, such stuff. But I think there is a room for that viable candidate here, someone who is not as caught up in the politics of Kenya or Djibouti, or someone who does not look as from one region, who is Pan-African as a whole. And this is where I see the candidature of Anil Gayan of Mauritius coming in. Gayan is well known for his pragmatic approach and a solid understanding of African politics. He's not, again, tied to the old power dynamics, as in the case of Raila. And he could be a refreshing alternative to both Raila and Yusuf. But his vision is maybe less bound by domestic entanglements, and it's more focused on Africa as a whole. And Anil Gayan will be counting on the endorsement of the South African Development Community, SADC. But this is really not likely to happen. But it's a way of writing off the significance of one candidate from Madagascar. His name, I think, is Richard Ridrimananto, something like that. And ultimately, if he is endorsed, I think he could greatly impact the race. And the chairperson seat really needs a leader who is genuinely wanting to unify the continent, one who is looking forward to bring change, really, and not to build his own political legacy. And Africa is currently facing a lot of economic challenges, security challenges, neo-colonial influence, and really the list is endless. And we could really need someone who embodies progress, and not someone too old, not someone who has been associated with failed promises. Raila has had decades to show us his commitment to African ideals. His track record shows the exact opposite. Africa needs action. We do not need symbolic gestures. We need substance. We need something that can be substantiated. And in my view, Raila and his candidature brings more questions than answers. But with leaders like Yusuf, whose track record is not as bad, and perhaps even Gayan from Mauritius, I think we have options to look at. And the Africa's future is very important to be left to leaders with questionable records and their own political agendas. And frankly, they do not want to do it for Africa. They are doing it for their own good. And I'm interested to hear what you think about Raila, and if he has a real chance at AUC, or we are looking at a time wasting exercise that I may deem it to be. And drop your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for watching and keeping it AfriRise. Do not forget to subscribe. Do not forget to hit the like button. Do not forget to keep the notification bell on. And we will be here to notify you all about African politics, leadership, and everything in between. So up until next time, keep it AfriRise.